Hello there, I'm Ibby, and welcome to Cinema Nerd, where today I will be explaining and breaking down the Back to the Future timeline. If you would like an explanation as to why I'm doing this, you're not gonna get one, so sorry about that. It would also definitely be a shame if you didn't like and subscribe to the channel. Actually, only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed, so go ahead and do that. I do sometimes make actual, high effort content instead of the screen recording on Microsoft Paint. I'm about to look like a crazy, insane conspiracy theorist right now, and I'm also going to be debunking some of the plot holes and verifying some of the plot holes are plot holes. So, without further ado, let's get into the Back to the Future timeline. If you think I'm wrong or you think I'm right, regardless of what your opinion is, leave your comment down below to join the conversation. Whatever, never doing the timeline. Okay, so we visit a total of 4 years over the course of the Back to the Future trilogy. The earliest we go into timeline is 1885, and the furthest we go in the timeline is 2015. And the main two time frames that we, on balance, spend the most time in are 1955 in 1985. This isn't a scale and it isn't proportional. If you were expecting that from me and MS Paint, you have your expectations in the wrong place. So let's make a little key here. So red is going to symbolize Marty time traveling. Brown is going to symbolize Doc Brown traveling. Green is going to symbolize both of them time traveling. And blue is going to symbolize Biff time traveling. Brown and Biff both start with the same thing. I probably should have used a D here, but I don't care. So let's first explain the mechanics of the Back to the Future time travel system. First of all, we are only going to be tracking major changes here. Because essentially what happens in the Back to the Future time travel system is that when you go back in time, so let's just use yellow as an example. When you go back in time and you change something, what that does is your changes essentially create an alternate timeline, and this is explained in Back to the Future Part 2. And essentially, all these changes kind of manifest to the existing timeline, and they just kind of happen, and then everything that isn't changed kind of just morphs into this changed reality, where the changes did take place, but everything that wasn't changed stays the same. And when you were in the past, you can slowly see some of the things that are changing that are because of your actions setting in. So let's go ahead and go through the plot of the first film, which most notably we get our first major changes due to time travel when Marty goes from 1985, where the movie begins in, to 1955, because that is the time Doc Brown placed in the DeLorean, because he's trying to escape the Libyan terrorists who just shot down Doc Brown. Now, his actions here have a lot of different effects. Initially, he saves George McFly from getting in a car crash, which gets him in a car crash, which means his mom gets Stockholm Syndrome for him instead of George McFly, which is a very strange situation indeed. Which leads to a very awkward scenario later in the movie. I digress. Overall, his changes, he tries to get them to be together regardless, and ultimately, it creates a change in which the future becomes wildly different. His parents are a lot cooler now. They look a lot younger. His dad is a sci-fi writer. His mom is cooler too. Yay, hooray. And when he eventually goes back to 1985, he's going to the 1985 he created, because this, over here, this timeline does not exist. It does not create an alternate branch. It's not a closed loop where every time travel incident is already predetermined. It's not like a Harry Potter system or an Avengers Endgame system. This is the Back to the Future time travel system, and it kind of became the model for all time travel systems and sci-fi fiction. Sci-fi fiction is kind of redundant, because that's saying science fiction, so that's dumb. Sci-fi movies. So, now, our next major change comes when Doc Brown comes from 2015, and this in itself is just kind of his presence. It doesn't create a major change, so we're not actually going to be mapping it. If there's anything I miss here, you can just add another thing. It's not really relevant to the plot of the movie or explaining how the systems work. So, basically, Doc Brown comes to Marty. Hey, Marty, you and your girlfriend, who I forgot the name of because she's not a very important character or a very memorable character, eventually you two have kids, and one of your kids is going to go to prison in 2015 because he got framed for some sort of crime. So we need to go stop that. Now, this is where the first major plot hole arises. The first film, in my personal opinion, does not have any plot holes. The big one people address is how do his parents not recognize him? And what you need to know is that they only knew Marty for like 2 or 3 days. They knew him as Calvin Klein. And whatever happened, they probably just perceived as being odd coincidences instead of anything that would incite major suspicion. They only knew him for a few days. Alright, so that happens. And they eventually do go together. Sorry, I wrote that in Biff's colors. I am dumb. Doc Brown comes. Alright, Doc Brown comes. He and Marty, and then also Marty's girlfriend, if you want to count her, and she magically changes actress in between films. They go to 2015, and they do create an alternate timeline. Okay, congrats. Your kid's not in jail this time. Wahoo! Now, the first plot hole that arises is, since an incident happened post-1985, or actually in 1985, shortly after the events of this film, it happens in Back to the Future Part 3 and is very narrowly avoided. That's an incident in which a car crash occurs, Marty's injured, it leads to him not becoming a successful rock artist, and basically what happens is that his lame life conditions arises from there. So, if it could have been avoided, why did they need to go to the arrest? They could have just stamped out the root cause. So that's the first actual logical inconsistency that arises. Whatever, it's a fun movie. Don't think about it too seriously. DeLorean and time travel and gee whiz. That's not what he said. Great Scott! That's what he said, not gee whiz. I don't know why I said that. So, now, the things where things get interesting is when Biff, who has been working as an employee of the McFlys, sees, first of all, in 1985, oh my god, why are they flying in a DeLorean? And then he finally figures out, oh my god, they're time travelers. So this new Biff, it's not just their presence, right? It technically created a new future further on, but it doesn't really matter. Biff goes back to 1955 with the sports almanac that Marty found, which essentially shows the results of a bunch of major sports games in between this period, which hypothetically, if you were to bet on those sports games and know the results in advance, you would have, knowledge of it, and you would be able to make a lot of money. So what he does is he gives himself, his past self, his young self, the sports almanac, right? And now, this version is now an insanely rich version. It leads to the death of George McFly. Biff marries Lorraine McFly. And when Biff returns to this 2015, after having made the changes, essentially what happens is this reality just morphs around them, and then since Doc and Marty are still here, they get converted to here, and when they go, no, that's Biff colors, my bad. When Doc and Marty go here, it goes like this. And then when they go back to 1985, it's this version where Biff has messed with stuff, which is a really cool plot point in that movie and makes it really unique. So what they need to do is now they need to go back to this 1955 and undo what Biff just did, creating a new timeline, Hooray! Everything is not screwed up now. That's great. But, in an unfortunate incident, Doc Brown actually gets transported back, it's reality, to 1885 in the Old West, which is a place he dreamed of being. And he creates a new timeline to which Marty and 1955 Doc Brown are transported. So I suppose you could color that with the Marty and Doc Brown colors, even though it's a different Doc Brown. I digress. So now we're here, and oh no, it looks like Doc Brown actually died in 1885 because he was killed by Mad Dog Tannen, an ancestor of Biff Tannen, who was like a very uncool cowboy. So essentially, Marty has to go stop that. Now the thing is, this Doc Brown, who's in 1955, still in 1955, is eventually going to go on the series of events and eventually go to 1885. So armed with the knowledge that he's actually going to end up in 1885, wouldn't it make sense that he just not do the events which led to his death? It's also treated as an inevitability that the event of Doc's death is going to happen. That's not entirely feasible because Doc Brown could just avoid it. It was unavoidable for the lightning to strike the clock tower in the original Back to the Future, which created the initial sense of urgency, the ticking time bomb element. It's just not logical here in Back to the Future Part 3. Regardless, Marty goes back to save Doc Brown, and he does. He prevents him from dying, and bam, now there's a new version, a new timeline. Now, this is going to be our final timeline, since it's our final major change of events. Doc Brown has now fallen in love with a woman 40 years younger than her, Clara. It's something that makes Leonardo DiCaprio pretty normal by comparison, which I don't want to think about that anymore. They're now time travelers on their new time-traveling machine, being a train rather than the DeLorean, which gets wrecked in this sequence, and also armed with the knowledge, having gone this on this weird positive change arc of not like getting scared when he's called Yella or a chicken. He doesn't get in the car crash, which changes things over here in 2015. His kid never gets arrested, which wasn't going to happen anyway, because, you know, they did all this. But the root cause has been resolved, and yay, it's a happy ending until they inevitably pay Christopher Lloyd enough to do a sequel, and somehow pay enough to Michael J. Fox to do a sequel despite the fact that he has Parkinson's, which is very unfortunate. And they do a cash grab legacy sequel that we'll only have to see if it ends up being good. So yeah, that is the Back to the Future timeline explained. If I missed something or got something wrong, or if you just generally speaking don't like me, or do like the video, feel free to comment down below to join the conversation. Smash like, subscribe, notification bell, share, family, friend, you know, all the YouTuber things. And have a great day. I'll see you when I actually post high effort content. I've been working on a video, and the script for that video is like 30 pages long, and it's going to be over an hour. It's going to be super in-depth, and I'm actually going to have an IQ above room temperature. That'll be fun. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this crap post. Have a horrible, horrible, lonely day. Bye. Now have a good one. See ya.